studio. I'm Erica Friedman, and here is where I answer questions I get at panels and online about the Yuri genre. I've been promising this video for a while, and finally today we're going to take a deep dive into one of the most beloved and timeless tropes of Yuri, the girl prince. Why now? Well, I, like many of you, recently watched Kageki Shoujo, and I expect some of you watching this video are familiar with the musical review troupe that the Koko school is supposed to be representative of. But you know me, I like to go deeper, further back into the annals of literary and artistic history. Everything I refer to today in this video is part and parcel of a larger, broader cultural heritage and history in Japan, but I want to be clear that I'm not claiming that these things exist in any kind of continuum. I'm not saying that one thing leads to another, but that these different pieces all contributed to a conceptual whole that we can identify. So today we're doing a deep dive on the girl prince. Who is she? Where did she come from? And what is her role in shoujo, manga, and yuri? When I say the girl prince, who do you think of? Utena, Oscar, maybe Sapphire? I'm going to start us back a little further in the Heian period. Most of us are familiar with the two great epics of Heian literature, Murasaki Shikibu's Genji Monogatari and Sei Shonagon's Makuro no Soshi. But today we're going to look at a third work, the Toriekaebaya Monogatari, which was written in the late Heian period by an unknown author. In this story, one of the emperor's highest-ranking ministers, the Sadaijin, the minister of the right, has two children, each by a different mother. The children grow up with temperament and interests more suited to the sex of the other. The child born as a girl becomes a chunagon, a middle-ranking male minister, and excels at all things as a man, while the child born as a man becomes a beautiful and accomplished woman in the women's quarters. Of course, in the Heian world, this would not be a sustainable change. The story resolves with each child returning to the sex that they were born with. For you and I, that might be a frustrating and upsetting ending. That said, this may be the earliest example of a girl prince we have in Japanese literature. There is an English language edition of the Toriekaebaya called The Changelings, but it has been the subject of much criticism for both the translation and the interpretation, so I don't think I can recommend it. If you read Japanese well enough to read manga, I do highly recommend the Toriekaebaya series by Chiho Saito, who also did the manga for Revolutionary Girl Utena. Her version is stunningly gorgeous and tells the tale from beginning to maddening end. And for those of us who remember as far back as 2004, you'll recognize the Fukuzawa siblings from Maria Sama ga Mitaru cross-playing the twins in what ends up being a comedic version of the Toriekaebaya as a play for the school festival at Lillian Jogakuen. Also, from the Heian period of Japanese history, there were women who, as entertainers in the imperial court, dressed as men. These women were known as Shirabiyoshi. Daughters of noble families might become Shirabiyoshi to make money. They would, like entertainers throughout history, have patrons with whom they had more intimate relationships, but they weren't courtesans or prostitutes. What they were singers and dancers who always dressed as men. In this 1825 Hokusai painting of Gozen Shizuka, probably the most famous Shirabiyoshi, you can see the typically male attire, the tate eboshi hat, and the swords, and the long ponytail. Now I'm going to guess that most of you are familiar with the Japanese theatrical form kabuki, in which men play all the roles. So in a broad way, you can get this idea of this form of cross-playing as well. Kabuki is, of course, a form of high culture, and I guess we kind of naturally assign imperial court entertainment to that category as well. After all, dancing with slow precision to Buddhist chants is not what we think of as pop culture. But we might ask ourselves at this point if there is a pop culture analog. For that, I'm going to jump about 700 years from the mid-13th century to the beginning of the 20th century. The Koko school in Kageki Shoujo is patterned after a real-life performing arts school and musical review called the Takarazuka Review, after the town of the same name. Most people in Japan would know of the iconic Takarazuka musical review and who Oscar-sama is and why she's so aspirational to Sarasa. I expect many of you watching this video will as well. Takarazuka was founded in 1913 by Kobayashi Ichizo, who was, among other things, the president of Hankyu Railways that was based in Takarazuka. The city was the final stop on a train line from Osaka, and Kobayashi thought it would be pretty cool if Takarazuka became a tourist destination. There were other tourist interests in Takarazuka, but Kobayashi thought theater was pretty popular. The Ziegfeld Follies were founded just a few years earlier in New York City, so he had an idea to create a musical revue as well. He modeled this new revue on the older pre-edict version of kabuki, where women filled all the roles. Performers are assigned a male or female role. Some of the otokoyaku, the performers who take the male role, continue with more masculine behavior and dress off stage, but this is neither universal nor required. One of the fans of Takarazuka Musical Revue was Tezuka Osamu, who would go on to create many famous manga. His grandmother took him to the Takarazuka Grand Theater, where he encountered the troops. Inspired by the shining eyes of the Takarazuka performers, their glamorous costumes, and the Disney movies he'd enjoyed in his youth, in 1953, Tezuka created the series Ribon no Kishi and an iconic girl prince. Sapphire is a girl who is accidentally given the heart of a boy and a girl at birth. Because the kingdom of Silverland's throne is entailed, Sapphire must pretend to be a boy so the country is not taken over by an evil duke who wants the throne for his own son. Sapphire is indeed princely. We're told that her bravery and her skill are the result of the boy's heart she was given, and that she really longs to be a girly girl, but it's that boy's heart which assists her in saving the prince she loves. When I used to talk about this series, I'd have to drag along my copies of Japanese manga, but you can actually read the 1963 edition of the manga, which is available digitally again from Kodansha Manga, and you can watch the 1967 anime for free legally on Retrocrush TV, or get it on DVD from Right Stuff. Sapphire is a girl and a prince, but it's an uncomfortable mix. From my perspective, Sapphire is very much a man's idea of the trials and travails of balancing these identities. A few decades later, it was a woman who took a crack at it and set the standard for the girl prince for years to come. The creation of Ryoko Ikeda, Oscar Francois de Jarget, is, like Sapphire, born a girl, but required by duty to act as a man. Unlike Sapphire, Oscar's skills and bravery are her own, and she achieves the position she holds on her own terms. She's proud of her skills and her accomplishments and never backs down from being the woman she is. That doesn't mean that Oscar is wholly untroubled by her life. In fact, the entirety of The Rose of Versailles can very much be seen as a series of identity crises for Oscar. As the story progresses, she struggles with her gender presentation, her goals, her desires, her class status, her desire for justice, her sympathy for the common people. A modern reader could find themselves speculating at a modern Oscar's marriage to a modern Rosalie after all. All of these things put her at odds with the expected roles for women of her time, but while Sapphire longs endlessly for the ability to be a regular girl, Oscar rejects that for herself when she is ordered to abandon her current life by her father. Where Sapphire's princeliness is a fluke of chance, Oscar's nobility shines through every choice she makes. Again, from my perspective, Oscar's story is very much a woman's ideal of a girl prince, an ideal which has never had a better avatar than Oscar Francois de Jarget. Let's also note that once again we have a Takarazuka connection. Having inspired Tezuka's Sapphire, Takarazuka is inspired by Ikeda's Oscar. Shortly after The Rose of Versailles concluded in 1974, Takarazuka's Moon Troupe performed the first of many iterations of Ikeda's story. Since then, the story has been performed dozens of times by multiple troupes. The ideal girl prince makes an ideal Takarazuka musical. Igarashi Yumiko is probably best known for her shoujo series Candy Candy, but in 1986 she penned Paros no Ken with another girl prince of note. In Paros no Ken, we are introduced to Erminia, and instantly we can recognize her as a girl prince. She's tall, favors men's clothes, and has better skills in fighting than anyone. Her father isn't interested in this princely daughter. He wants to marry her to a neighboring prince to protect the kingdom. Erminia asks to fight all comers. She'll only go with a man who is better than she is. In reality, Erminia had already fallen in love with a washerwoman, Fiona. Ultimately, Erminia fails to defeat the prince from the neighboring kingdom, who had his eyes on conquering Erminia's country anyway. One might expect, since Oscar had previously set a high standard for girl prince behavior, that Erminia would sacrifice herself for the people, but nope. Instead, she and Fiona run away together, leaving her country, which is for a woman like her, to burn. After a decade of a girl prince who would sacrifice everything for the people, we have a new kind of girl prince in Erminia. Like the queer folks globally who were being ostracized due to AIDS at that time, Erminia wasn't suffering in silence. In a totally 80s move, she left home and ran off with her lover and never looked back. It's a whole new spin on being princely, really, sacrificing everything for love, not duty. Erminia's choice would linger on and give later girl princes a new conundrum, which brings us to Sailor Moon. Yes, I am including Haruka here, but not because a bunch of delusional fans of the Deke Sailor Moon twisted themselves into knots to try to imagine a Prince Uranus, but because the story itself does a damn fine job of giving us a princely Haruka. In the manga, Michiru explains to Usagi that Haruka is both a man and a woman, and how we interpret that is up to us, but I've always seen it as a direct reference to Sapphire myself, because that was another manga at that time that the Japanese reading audience in the 1990s might be expected to be familiar with. What we do see is Haruka as a young woman who is introduced with masculine presentation, but especially when we look at the manga and the art books, is comfortable presenting in a feminine manner as well. That said, it's not the clothing that makes the girl prince. It's the struggle between duty and love and being part of a destiny that might require personal sacrifice. When we get to see Sailor Uranus' origin episode, we see that both Haruka and Michiru are caught up in something that, for their world, is as significant as a national revolution. Haruka has, when we meet her, abandoned love and a normal life. Although, how much of a normal life would a 60-year-old champion race car driver, virtuoso pianist, and track star be expected to live, really? The point is that, like so many anime heroes, Haruka is navigating adolescence with the added burden of the world's destruction on her mind. And, despite that, she's charming, funny, princely. Like so many kids with too much responsibility, she finds it hard to ask for help or rely on others, so it's a good thing she's got Michiru at least. When there's a prince needed, Haruka fits the bill. Just to put a fine point on it, she looks great in a uniform too. This is how one of the official trading card series portrayed her. At the time I bought this set, it was probably the most I'd ever paid for any kind of anime goods, but I'll share it with you now. Tenjo Utena comes to us with a whole tome of baggage about what it means to be a prince, and the manga, the television anime, the movie, and the movie manga all take a different crack at it. For young Utena, being a prince entails all the qualities we've seen in girl princes so far. She beats the boys at their own games, she favors a uniform that is not quite the boys but is definitely not the girls. When opportunity presents itself to offer protection to a damsel in distress, Utena takes it as a chance to become the prince she wants to be. How this story plays out differs from version to version, but I'm going to look at just one iteration today which presents a definitive resolution. In the television anime, Utena rejects the prince, and in the moment of becoming her own ideal of what a prince should be, she is betrayed. Utena literally disappears from the story, and in doing so gives Anthe the agency to free herself. Her sacrifice was indeed princely. Utena's answer then to the question of duty and loyalty versus friendship and love is both and neither. Like so many heroes before her, Utena cannot just simply return home and live peacefully. As I was thinking about this video, I realized that the girl prince has other functions as well. So let's take a moment to look at the dark side of the girl prince. In Ryoko Keita's Oni-sama E, Dear Brother, we are introduced to two different girl prince characters, the athletic and fair-minded Kaoru no Kimi and the damaged Saint-Just. Kaoru, known as Kaoru no Kimi, is clearly meant to represent the noble girl prince. She's uninterested in the political will of the school and stands up against Miyasama's machinations. But she is not committed to such actions, nor is she prepared to sacrifice for anyone, as she has a separate burden to deal with. Rei, known as Saint-Just, is the dark side of the girl prince. Attractive, smart, lonely, bohemian, damaged. She is the perfect object of adoration for smart, lonely, bohemian wannabe girls. She's masculine and athletic, but sadness pervades every interaction with her. She's incapable of staying out of the political situation at Seiran, although she doesn't care about any of it. Kaoru and Rei are incredible foils for one another throughout the story. We see Kaoru seeking to uphold her ideals, and Rei striving to merely survive. It's easy to see Rei's fate as a warning against playing a nihilistic girl prince. Murasama ga Miteru's Sato Sei is likewise a troubled girl prince. For her, the role is a mask that she wears to hide her real pain. Despite that pretense, it is a mask that suits her very well. Also, I want to point out that while we don't see Sei being particularly masculine in dress or behavior, she is the only one of the Yamayuri-kai addressed with the honorific kun in the entire novels. I'm sure I'm not the only one who is unsurprised that once out of Lillian's rarefied air, Sei gets a butch makeover. Eventually, in Parasol Osashite, as Sei escorts Yumiko, Kei's elderly landlord, away, Yumi thinks that, as an escort, Sei doesn't lose to a top Takarazuka star. It's a reminder that being a girl prince is a role that some folks are just suited to. Sei may have used that role to mask her pain initially, but now it's an integral part of who she is. Now that we've taken a look at a few key historical girl prince characters, I want to talk a little bit about the role of the girl prince. Obviously, if the girl prince is an actual prince or noble, the role is pretty straightforward. In those cases, the girl prince represents a character who is balancing male and female gender role expectations in an attempt to express an ideal form of princeliness. The devil's in the details of the story, whether the girl prince sacrifices all for duty or for love. When a character takes on that role, even for a single performance, it's a way to remind us how she is perceived by others, and also used to remind us of that character's inherent strength. Sugimoto-senpai's role in Wuthering Heights in Aoi Hana Sweet Blue Flowers is meant to reflect the feelings of the students around her, which is why she falls so far off her pedestal when she turns out to be unsuited for the role. Fumi steps up into that role, however briefly. Among many things, it's an indication that she has grown and is not the insecure child we originally met. Some series use the girl prince as a way to show shoujo heroines as a heroine. A great example of this is Cardcaptor Sakura. Sakura's costumes are always cute and rarely anything other than a very girly dress-up. But when the school play comes around, everyone in the class knows who the prince will be. Sakura's dashing prince is designed to remind us that she has the strength and the agency to be the series' hero. And lastly, we occasionally see the girl prince used as a stand-in so the creator can present a kind of fake boys' love story. In these stories, a girl might present as a boy, but there have been a few that commit hard to the premise. Popular BL creators Zawa Taishi and Eki Eki wrote a series for Yuri Hime called Love Gene XXX, set in a world without men. For unconvincing reasons, women split into Adams and Eves, and love can only be between an Adam and an Eve, not two of the same presentation, so of course our two protagonist Adams fall in love. That series skirted with the idea of LGBTQ+ rights, but ended before making a case for change. Another great example of this kind of Yuri, but make it BL, is Takarazuka's Pono Ichizoku, where both male leads are, of course, played by women, and all their smoldering and bonhomie is meant to be read as boys' love. Which brings me to the final question of this video. Are there any contemporary girl prince characters? The answer is yes, and it all comes back to Takarazuka again. This shouldn't be surprising, as Takarazuka has a 100 years of gender-bending history, a popular venue for girl princes and princely women to be highlighted. Kageki Shoujo, the manga by Saiki Kumiko, and the anime based on that manga, tells the story in a pretty contemporary way. The story is told through the eyes of a young woman, Watanabe Sarasa, who, unable to become a kabuki performer, has her heart set on joining the Koka review to play none other than the avatar of all girl princes, Asuka herself. The thing about this story is that Watanabe is meant to be seen as an uncarved block, almost a simpleton at the beginning. But as we learn about her training and her skills, we come to realize that she'll be a natural if she can only be taken seriously. The role of the girl prince comes naturally to her. It might seem obvious that I'm including this series because of the ties to both Takarazuka and Rose of Versailles, but I really hope you all pay attention to Sarasa. She's not strutting around in a uniform yet, but if you pay attention, you can see she is already a girl prince. She's always on the side of the people. She helps everyone out as a matter of course. She's not a noble. In fact, it's pretty clear if anything, she's a commoner, but her inner nobility shines through. There's no doubt that she's destined to play a girl prince on the Koka stage because she's already one in her daily life. So there you have it. The girl prince has been with us since, well, the beginning of Japanese literature. Along the way, she's asked us which is more important, duty to the greater good or love. She's fought for what's right. She's seduced us with grand dreams of dancing at Versailles or surrounded by roses. She's helped us face the darkness and embrace the light. She's been strong when we needed it and taken our hand when we held it out to her. The girl prince is an important part of our balanced Yuri diet, and we wouldn't want it any other way. We'll always have room for another girl prince on our shelves. Thank you again for joining me today. I hope you'll take a moment to click like on this video and subscribe to this channel if you haven't already. All the series I mentioned will be listed in the show notes with links to the Yuricon store where you can purchase them from a variety of vendors. If this video has inspired you to think of any other girl prince characters, definitely leave a comment and tell us who they are and what makes them a girl prince. Or tell me which girl prince is your favorite. I definitely want to hear from you. Thanks very much to my patrons for making this and all of our videos possible. If you'd like to see more Yuri Studio videos, please join our Patreon or our brand new Pixiv fan box. If you become a patron or a fan, you'll be supporting these videos, helping us continue to pay industry standard rates for our reviewers at Okazu, and help support Yuri creators directly and indirectly by buying media. Your support goes a very long way. So thank you all very much, and I'll see you next time on Yuri Studio.